What's up, meta nerds? Today's video is all about the OG-9 homing spider droid, also known as the spider droid or the spider walker. Like most of you guys, this thing blew me away the first time I saw it during the Battle of Geonosis. So let's take a moment to learn all about this very unique droid. The Spider Walker was produced by the Bactoid Armor Workshop, a company that was a part of the Trade Federation, and thus, during the Clone Wars, became a part of the Confederacy of Independent Systems. Its Trade Federation origins makes it cousins to the battle droids, hyena bombers, and a bunch of others. When this thing walked out of the factory, it was 7.32 meters tall, or about 24 feet, making it the exact same size as this giant peeing dog sculpture, which is totally real, by the way, look it up. The total cost of a spider droid was 70,000 credits. This makes it a little bit pricier than a Hellfire, but cheaper than an Octoptara. Its armament included 2 laser cannons, the smaller one for personnel and the larger one for vehicles. And just in case our spider droid encounters an enemy that he can't take out, or maybe he doesn't want to destroy, it can always rely on its retractable ion cannon. This will simply disable the threat instead of melting it down. But I think it's important to take into consideration that the only information that we have about this ion cannon comes from the strategy guide for the Battlefront 2 video game, and not any other substantial canon sources. But what we do know about the spider droid is that its central sphere contained a reactor that was very volatile. Tons of energy was required for these weapons, and if this metal sphere was ever blown open, the chain reaction was extremely violent. To help prevent this from happening, each of the homing spider's 4 legs all had hydraulic shock absorbers. This way, the spider droid was able to make its way up very difficult terrain without accidentally blowing itself up. And while we're talking about its legs, they were actually able to move the spider droid forward at a pretty surprising speed. Don't get me wrong, I mean, they're not swoop bikes, but they had a top speed of 70 kilometers an hour. Compare this to a top speed of only 50 kilometers an hour for their armored assault tank, and you see that our spider droid here was surprisingly fast. I find this pretty terrifying when you also consider the fact that it was waterproof. Because of the unstable nature of the components within its sphere, they made sure it was completely sealed off from the outside environment. So like its dwarf spider droid cousin, the homing spider droid was also able to walk along the seafloor. And I think it kinda sucks that we don't get to see one on Kashyyyk. Because although they were used throughout the Clone Wars, there's only 2 times we see it on film. One was way far off in the background on a shot on Felucia, and the other was during the Battle of Geonosis. Here you can see how the 2 different lasers were put to use, and it really outlines how important of a feature it was to have a bottom-mounted cannon that could take out infantry, and the top cannon to try and shoot down all those pesky LAATs. As the tactic here seems to be to let your B1 and B2 battle droids carry out the offensive and take the battle to the clone troopers that were landing, while having Hellfire droids follow up the rear, sending rockets at the ATTEs, and leaving the homing spider droid all the way in the back, taking advantage of the really long range on its laser cannons and acting as a last line of defense, presumably because it could take on 2 targets, knowing that the LAATs would come for the core droid ships. The top cannon could try and take them out, and if the B1s and B2s got overwhelmed by clone troopers, it still had the bottom-facing infantry cannon to try and take them out. It's kinda cool to see how much information you can get from just a couple shots. But knowing that they were faster than a hovering assault tank, it really makes me wish that we could have seen these guys used on offense. I mean, imagine seeing a whole bunch of spider droids hitting 43 miles an hour and just slicing through all kinds of clone defenses. Well, that's it for their history, but before you go, a couple cool facts and some behind-the-scenes stuff. With a lot of droids we've talked about, we've wondered if they might have had some sort of their own personality. And even some of the droid vehicles have done things that make us wonder if there was some part of them that developed that became more than just their coding. Take for example the Manta droid Subfighter, who, long after the Clone Wars, created their own sort of community underwater on Mon Calamari. But sadly, the OG-9 homing spider droid was a little bit simpler. It said that they were simply identified by their number, and all that they possessed was an internal logic processor and certain programs for longer range missions. And on top of that, they also received orders from the central control computer, having no kind of long-term memory capabilities. It's also interesting to point out that although Bactoid Armor Workshop built them, this company was dissolved by the Trade Federation. But before they closed up shop, the Commerce Guild swooped in and purchased a whole bunch of different types of droid models. Some of them were the Spider Walk. Here we see a funny parallel to the Hailfire droid, in that the Commerce Guild took a page out of the Mune Banker notebook and actually used these machines to enforce their laws and collect debts. Which brings us to our only behind-the-scenes fact. During the post-production for Episode 2, the Spider Droid was simply referred to as Commerce Guild Droid B, which makes me wonder, the Dwarf Spider was also employed by the Commerce Guild, so was that Commerce Guild Droid A? And if so, does that mean that the Dwarf Spider was designed first? Let me know what you guys think. But anyways, that's it for the Spider Droid. Hope you liked the video, and I really hope you learned something new. And subscribe if you haven't already, because we're making videos like this every single day. Know that you can always make suggestions for future videos, but most important of all, remember, the Force will be with you. Always. Houdini! Darth Jawa. And here are some bloopers while you think about what to watch next. But we do know that the spider swoids. All the energy from these laser cannons was all inside of that. Was all inside up in it. This had a bonus effect of allowing the spider droid to be able to walk along the bottom of the seafloor. Seafloor? Seashells, spider droids by the seafloor. I always wish that I shall pop a doo doo.